the way he was like the perfect boyfriend at the age of like 12, even earlier, I think. It was so unrealistic. And all her characters that have a lot of screen time, page time, are morally gray, and I love that. I have no words, except that's obviously a lie because I'm gonna hit you now with like probably way more words than necessary. What I find interesting is like it's a filler book. At least it feels to me like a filler book. Not much happens. Obviously there things happen, but like not much happens. But it's a 1,000-page book. Hello, fellow book lovers. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Eline. Thank you all so much for clicking on this video. And Happy New Year, because it's been a while since I posted a video and this is my first video of 2026. Like I said, it has been a while since I posted because it was just so busy. Christmas, and then I got sick as well, and if you can tell from my voice, I still am a little bit, so that was why I was absent for the past 2.5-ish weeks. So in today's video, we're gonna do a 2025 wrap-up video. I've decided to go with tier ranking because it's classic, it's fun, I think everyone loves it. So I'm gonna be tier ranking all of the 62 books that I read in the year 2025. 62 books for me is quite a lot. I think if I compare myself to other booktubers on here, 62 is like on the lower side. But for me personally, it's the most books I've ever read in a year, so I'm actually quite proud of that. Can we have a little party? Okay. On the other hand, quality wise, I don't know if I had the best reading year, at least not if I compare it to 2024, but then maybe 2024 was just extremely good. I think in 2024 I had like maybe 10 books that I put in my top tier category of like, I think I called it what I'm going to call it today as well. A 6-star needs to be invented. So that's like even kind of higher than a 5-star if that were to be possible. And I had like so many books in there, like 10, maybe it was 8 or something, but like a lot. That was not the case this year. Last year I just discovered so many of my favorite series. I read the whole Magnolia Park series, I read Boys of Tommen, I read Fourth Wing, some of my favorite books of all time. And this year I read like, I'd say one book that I would say is now one of my favorites of all time, and the rest was not. But like, there were some 5 stars. Like I had like 10 5-stars, but I do also think I give out 5 stars maybe a little bit easily. And that's something I might want to change in the next year. But I'm rambling, so let's not go on and on about all these random things and get into the actual tier ranking. Okay, let's see the tiers that I made first. I actually kind of just used the same tiers that I did for my tier ranking every book I read in 2024 video because there was not much wrong with it. So I thought, why change it? So on the top, we have the same that we had last time. A 6-star needs to be invented. And like I said, I think there's going to be one book in here, maybe 2. We'll see. Then we have 5 stars. This is just my 5-star reads. Yeah, no further explanation necessary. Then we have definitely recommend. So these are not quite 5 stars, but they are absolutely good, even great books, and I would go out of my way to recommend this to you. Then we have mid, which is books that I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but they were not bad. By no means were they bad, but they were just mid. So yeah, mid is just, I wouldn't go out of my way to recommend it, and there were some issues with it. There were maybe moments that were like either predictable or there was like a plot hole that was like but it was still very enjoyable. And these are also kind of the books that were enjoyable at the time, but I never really think back on them and they're not very memorable. So that's kind of what you need to think of in this category. And then we have I don't regret reading it, which I don't regret reading it, but also that is kind of the most positive thing I have to say about it. I kind of feel like I had a lot of issues with it. There were like either the characters were annoying or the plot didn't make much sense, or like the beginning was good but the ending was very bad in my opinion. If a book ends up in there, it's not good. And then we have Ugh, which is even worse. And it's for the books that I actually disliked and feel like I shouldn't even have picked them up. I do regret reading these books. I wish I could go back in time and tell my past self to DNF these books or not even pick them up, because they were bad. Like I said, in my opinion. Let's get that disclaimer out of the way. In general, everything I'm going to say in this video is just my opinion. If I put a book that you love in Ugh, we have a different opinion. That's fine. That's okay. Let's be nice to me and each other in the comments. If I get comments, I usually don't get comments, so I don't know why I'm saying this. But you gotta manifest, right? You gotta manifest. I'm gonna get comments, and they're gonna be nice. So, anyway, those were the tiers, and I think it's time to get into the ranking of the books. We are not starting very strong here. Light Lark. I don't regret reading Light Lark. There were parts that were entertaining, and I can see how other people will like this. I don't know fully how to explain, but I was bored. By the way, I hope you can't hear. My cats are like chasing each other through the room. They're like, this is the moment to play. They play for like 5 minutes a day, and they picked this moment. So, Light Lark, I was just not enjoying my time with it. It's as simple as that. Emma by Jane Austen. I find it difficult to rate classics because they're so different, and obviously when I'm tier ranking, inherently I am comparing books to each other as well. And I find it so difficult to compare classics to the other books that I read because it's such a different kind of reading experience. I would say I definitely recommend Emma if you are into classics. Like, if you want to pick up a classic, then I would say Emma is a good one. It's not the best one, but it's a good one. Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, I would say definitely recommend. I am not the biggest fan of romances, or at least I think in this year I've kind of grown out of romances, which saddens me because it used to be like one of my favorite genres, and I can't seem to find good romances anymore. But Abby Jimenez, I would say, is kind of an exception to that. They're not my favorite books. I don't think a contemporary romance will ever really be my favorite book, but I would say within the contemporary romance genre, Part of Your World is definitely a good one. And so is yours truly. So I'm going to put it right up with Part of Your World. Tom Lake by Anne Patchett. Okay, I loved this book. Absolutely loved this book. And I cannot for the life of me explain why. Because if I try to explain the plot to someone, it seems so boring. And I've heard people say it's boring. And I kind of get that. Like, I get why you would think it's boring. But I, for some reason, had the best time with it. And I just kept on turning the pages. And I can see why people think it's boring. And I will not judge you if you hate this. But I, for some reason, just really connected with the story, with the characters, with the atmosphere. I thought it was just beautifully written. I thought the landscape specifically was beautifully written. I could not put it down. So I'm going to say 5 stars. Then we have A Court of Mist and Fury, which is interesting because I did not like this book at all. I think I gave it like 2.5 stars, and I will put it in I don't regret reading it. But I do think I want to give it a reread because I do wonder if I will love it when I read it again, because I went on to read the rest of the series. And I think the only reason that I even did that is because I had already purchased the 3rd book. And there was one day that I was like, well, I am kind of curious. And then I picked it up, and then I got so hooked and I couldn't put it down. And then I finished the series back to back. But still, when I read A Court of Mist and Fury, I didn't like it. I think there were just a few issues that I had with the plot. And if I have to summarize it all, I think the best way to explain it is there were a few different moments in the plot that I felt like they got out of a problem too easily. Like, there was something and I feel like, yeah, that just should have killed them, but it didn't. Or there was a solution that I felt like they got to the solution so easily. And that's what I didn't like about A Court of Mist and Fury. I thought it was a little bit unbelievable. But then I went on to read A Court of Wings and Ruin, which I would say definitely recommend. And I started really liking the characters. So I think if I go back and read A Court of Mist and Fury now, maybe I will enjoy it a lot more, because I do think there were a lot of fun scenes between specifically Feyre and Rhys that I kind of just didn't really love when I read them the first time, because I didn't love them as a couple, but now I do. So I think maybe if I will read them again, they will hit me like they should have the first time, honestly. So I hope that made any sort of sense. Court of Frost and Starlight, I mean, it's mid. I absolutely am glad that I read it, but it is nothing to write home about. Like, it's just a novella. Nothing much happens. It's more vibes. It's not much plot. It's vibes. A Court of Silver Flames. Okay, I'm in between these two. And the reason that I would put it here is because in April, I decided, because April is when I read A Court of Silver Flames, and I read Tom Lake before that. And I have this page in my reading journal where I rank my favorite of the month and like let them sort of like compete against each other in this sort of grid format. And I have to pick like, oh, this was my favorite of February and this was my favorite of March. And I liked my favorite of February more than I liked my favorite of March, or something like that. I hope that makes sense. And back in April, when I finished A Court of Silver Flames, I said that my favorite of, I think it was February, Tom Lake, was better than my favorite of April, which was A Court of Silver Flames. So my past self has decided that Tom Lake is better than A Court of Silver Flames. But I don't know if I still agree with my past self in this matter. I'm gonna put it here because this tier ranking is meant to be how I feel now. 11/22/63. I liked this book a lot. I would say definitely recommend. It was not quite a 5-star, but it was close. There were parts in the middle that I thought were a little bit long and like dragging a little bit, but overall I think it was just a really good story. Quicksilver. I don't know. I mean, I had a really good time with it. I didn't really love the ending, and that's why I didn't want to continue to read Brimstone, but I did have a really good time with it. I mean, yeah, I think if you are into romantasy, then I would say I recommend. There were parts of it that I didn't love, but yeah, let's give it the benefit of the doubt and let's put it in here. The Hunger Games, the whole trilogy. I find it very difficult to rate these books because I think the plot is very, very good. But I had already seen the movies like 3 times and read the books when I was like 12 or something. And I think that definitely changed my reading experience. I knew exactly what was going to happen. And so I didn't really have the best time with it. And I find it very difficult to judge it separately from the movies because I cannot turn off the part of my brain that knows the plot of the movie. So, based on my personal experience, I'm going to put these two in mid and this one in I don't regret reading it. But I will say that I think they are good books. And if you've never seen the movies, I think, they are very, very good stories. And maybe if I hadn't seen the movies, I would have put them higher. But for now, I cannot, because then I would put them higher for a sort of hypothetical situation that didn't happen. This was my experience, and I'm sticking with it. The favorites. Okay, so I didn't actually give the favorites a 5-star, but I do feel like it almost deserves to be in here because I feel like I can't put it with Emma and Part of Your World and Yours Truly. My video, my rules. I'll put it in there. I think I gave it a 4.75, so like, it's fine. They both die at the end. I would say this is mid. It's a good idea, and it wasn't a bad execution. That sounded like I was going to say good idea, bad execution. Not at all. It just wasn't super memorable to me. I just think maybe I was also just not the right age group for this book. It is a young adult, and I am technically a relatively young adult, but I am not like 16 anymore. So I don't even know why it's not higher than this, because I cannot point to anything in the book itself that I would say, this is the reason, this is what I didn't like. I can't point to any of that, but feeling wise, it needs to be here. Send Nudes is a short story collection that is not all about sending nudes, I promise. I did not like this. I think short stories maybe are just not for me, because I feel like a short story doesn't give you enough time to connect to the characters, and that is something I love about reading. This one just didn't really hit. It was a very random collection of very random stories that didn't seem to have much to do with each other, and there were, I think, like 2 of them that I liked but didn't love, and all the rest I was kind of just like counting the pages, like how long is this one going to be? Is it almost over? So yeah, I'm gonna actually have to put this in ugh, because I would say I do regret reading it. Funny story. I don't know why, but me and Emily Henry, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, and I don't know why. I wish it did. I have never liked. Okay, that sounds like I read a lot. I really didn't. I read Funny Story and I read Happy Place, but I didn't like either of them, and I don't know why. Because everyone loves her, and I want to be in on that. Why can't I be in on that? A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. See, this one, I didn't know the plot because I hadn't yet seen the movie, and so I think I definitely enjoyed this a lot more. I would say definitely recommend. It was very interesting to see where President Snow started off from and how he ended up being the person that he is in the other books and movies. Releasing 10. I want to love this so bad. I want to love this so bad because I loved Finding 13, Keeping 13, Saving 6, and Redeeming 6. Those last 2 are some of my favorite books of all time, but I just didn't love this book. I felt like this was just trauma dumping, trauma dumping, trauma dumping, and it felt completely unrealistic how much these characters are going through. And I guess if it was written a bit differently, then it could have been fine, but the way it was written also, it just felt a little bit like the writer was trying so hard for us to feel horrible for this character, and it felt a bit fake. I don't know how to explain this, but it felt weird. It felt like we were doing trauma bingo where we were trying to get all of them, and we were trying to collect as many traumatic experiences as possible. And you, the male main character in this story, is completely adorable, and I love the way he treats her. But that also, I'm so sorry, that is not realistic. He is like 12 and he is dealing with her panic attacks and her mental illness better than 95% of adults ever would. And that didn't seem realistic to me. The way he was like the perfect boyfriend at the age of like 12, even earlier, I think. It was so unrealistic. And I was glad for her as a fictional character that she had this great fictional character in her life, but I could not get into the story because of how unrealistic this was. And that ties in with my other main critique point, which is that all the characters in the beginning of the book are like 4, 5, and 6 years old, because the book jumps quite a while back in time. This friend group of like Claire and Lizzie and Gypsy, they're like 5 years old, 6 years old at the beginning of the book, and they talk like adults. They have such deep conversations that I haven't ever heard a 10-year-old have, or like a 12-year-old would maybe start to have them. And these characters were having them at 5 years old, and it was just completely unrealistic. And I feel like I can know this because I teach 5-year-olds. They do not talk like this. They really do not talk like this. And these kids were like, they had the emotional intelligence of fully grown adults, and it just made no sense. And that really bothered me. Okay. I've talked about this for a long time now. I'm going to say I don't regret reading it. It still is one of my favorite series because of the first 4 books, and I do love these characters. I do want to know what happens to this group of people. So I will also continue the series, at least for now. If all the books are like this, I might DNF the series, but for now, I still am excited about the next book. Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang. This was one of my favorite reads of the year. I'm going to put it in 5 stars. There were so many layers to the story. I also love how R.F. Kuang always shines a light on both sides of an argument without really forcing you to pick one, but she kind of shows you the good and the bad of both sides. She was really showing us insane decisions that our main character makes, but also the main character made some decisions or had some points that I was like, yeah, that actually makes sense. And that doesn't mean she is now a good person because she did some crazy things. But I do love that R.F. Kuang really creates a complex story and not a very black and white story. It is not like, oh, this is the villain, this is the hero, she does everything right, he does everything wrong. It's not like that at all. All her characters that have a lot of screen time, page time, are morally gray, and I love that. The Conditions of Will by Jessa Hastings. I would say definitely recommend. I think I gave this 4.75 stars as well, which, yeah, I'm gonna put the favorites down here again because I do want to keep this just my 5 stars actually. Okay, so The Conditions of Will, I gave it 4.75. I didn't think it was quite as good as Magnolia Parks, but I did really, really enjoy my time with it. I enjoyed the character, I enjoyed the writing style. Jessa Hastings is so funny. I just love the way she writes, and I will read everything she ever publishes, except for Never, actually. What a lie. What a lie. I'm not picking up Never. I don't know. Something about the premise just does not interest me whatsoever. Okay. In the Absence of Men. I don't regret reading this, but it didn't really stick with me. I didn't really enjoy my time with it, which I was disappointed about because I read another book by this author and I gave it 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. This is the author Philippe Besson, who wrote Lie With Me. I talk about that in my 2024 wrap up. One of my favorite books. So beautiful, and it deals with similar topic of a relationship between two men in a time that was still not as accepted as it is now. So I thought I would really love it, but I didn't. Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. I would say definitely recommend. The Once Upon a Broken Heart series. I think I've said this on my channel multiple times. I do not like this series, and I think every single person I've ever come across on the internet has loved this series, and I didn't like it at all. I didn't even like it a little bit. I can understand why someone else would like this because it has a lot of twists and turns. And I think most people that I've heard rave about this mention that it's very whimsical and it reads a little bit like a fairy tale. And that is definitely something I can agree with. For me, the plot was just a complete mess. And actually, there were so many twists and turns that I thought it was a bad thing. It seemed to me that after every chapter, Stephanie Garber wrote down 6 options of where the plot could go and then roll the dice and decided like that. That's how it felt like. It kind of felt like completely random where the plot was going. I think a good story starts with a character having a goal and is about a character pursuing that goal. And her goal, I think in the first book, changes like 4 times. Basically, her boyfriend is engaged to someone else, and she believes he would never do this to her because he loves her. And so she thinks the only possible way that he would ever do this is that he has been cursed. So she goes and asks for help from the Prince of Hearts, and she strikes some kind of deal with him to help uncurse her boyfriend. And so at the start of the story, her main goal, like what she wants in life, is she wants to break the curse that's on her boyfriend. 3 or 4 chapters into the book, she seems to have completely forgotten that this was her goal and she has a new goal. And then I think again halfway through the book, she has completely forgotten her second goal and she has a completely new goal. And every chapter something new happened, which I think some people can say that's a good thing. But to me, it was too much. It was too much, and it felt like it was random instead of a very well plotted book with twists and turns that tie in together at the end, that makes sense, that when you were to reread the book, you would be like, oh, I could have seen this coming. It didn't feel like that at all. It felt like she was trying to get the most twists and turns in a book. And there were some other plot holes, but I honestly don't remember the details. So that is how I feel about Once Upon a Broken Heart. The first one, I don't regret reading it. I did have, I think I rated it 3 stars, actually, which now I feel like, looking back at it, that's a bit too high for my experience with it. But these 2, I do regret reading them, actually. I Who Have Never Known Men. I would say this is mid. No. Do I recommend? I couldn't put this book down, but it's also only over 100 pages. I read it in the night. I read it in like almost one sitting. I had to get up for my internship early the next morning, and I was like, I need to turn off the light and go to sleep now. My alarm is in X hours. And I kept on reading. I kept on reading. I was like, yeah, but just like one more page. So yeah, I would say definitely recommend. With this one, you have to keep in mind that it is a dystopian setting, but it is about the characters and it is about her experience with this dystopian world. And you're not going to get answers to why she is in this dystopian world. I think if you go in this expecting to get answers and expecting to find out like some kind of epic conclusion or reason or like backstory, you're not going to get that. I think she mentions it at the beginning because she is writing something and she looks back at like her life or something. I think she says it in the beginning. She says something like, "Oh, I never got the answers" or something. She really doesn't. She's not lying to you. She never got the answers. She's not going to give you the answers. But I had a good time with it, for sure. Every summer after, I gave this one 5 stars, which for me in a romance novel is a unique situation. So that's good. It was a second chance. I love second chance. They say it's reminiscent of Love and Other Words. I can see that. I do think Love and Other Words is slightly better, but I loved Love and Other Words and I loved Every Summer After as well. One Golden Summer. I don't understand. I don't understand the hype with this one. I really don't. And like I said with Emily Henry, like I want to be in on this. I want to love it so much like everyone does, and I just don't. I like this more than Once Upon a Broken Heart. But what I said with Once Upon a Broken Heart is that I can understand that someone else loves it because it is very twisty, it's very turny, it's very whimsical, it's very magical. One Golden Summer, I actually don't understand why everyone loves this so much. I really, really don't. And that's okay. Of course, you can love it. I'm glad for you that you love it, but I didn't see it. And no matter how hard I try, I cannot seem to see it. It seemed to me like the perfect book to put in mid because that's exactly what it felt like to me. It felt like the most average romance I have read in a long time. It was not bad, but it was by no means an original story or concept. There were no original characters. Like, was the male main character really nice to our female main character? Yes, absolutely. But that's also the case in 9 out of 10 romance books. And I feel like that's with everything. It was not bad at all. It was just nothing special, in my opinion. And I guess everyone thinks it's special, and I wonder why. I want to know. The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This was my top read of the year. I don't even, yeah. I I have no words, except that's obviously a lie because I'm gonna hit you now with like probably way more words than necessary. I absolutely love this book. I think this is so well written. I was constantly so impressed by the way this story was plotted, the layers in this book, the complexity of the characters, everything about this. I cannot fault this book. It was so emotional, it was so layered, it was so complex. I loved how many different parts of the war she highlights and how she specifically highlights the role of women, which I haven't seen done before, at least not in this way. I wish I could do the book justice in explaining why I loved it, and I feel like I can't. I feel like I can never do it justice, and everything I'm going to say about it now is underselling it. And I think that's the best way that I can sell it, is saying that I'm underselling it. It's beautiful and the best World War II story I have ever read, possibly the best book I've ever read. Some of my favorite characters, some of my favorite main characters, some of my favorite side characters. If you want more detailed thoughts, you can watch my November wrap up. That's the month that I read this book, and I go a little bit more in detail about the book in that video. And also, I obviously sobbed my eyes out. Like, I feel like that's a given, right? Okay, Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I think this is my least favorite by Taylor Jenkins Reid, but I gave everything else 5 stars. I think no, One True Loves I also gave 4 stars. This is my least favorite, but I will still definitely recommend. All of her books, I think, are so, so good. Anne of Avonlea. I have said this before in other videos. I never know how to pronounce this book. Is it Avonlea, is it Avonlea? Is it Avonlea? I don't know. But either way, the second part in the Anne of Green Gables series, I would say definitely recommend. I love this series. It's so wholesome. That's the best word I can use to describe it. It's just wholesome. It's so cute. And the way the town is described is really cute as well. And it seemed like such a beautiful place to live. And Anne is such an adorable and sweet character. How Was It For You by Eve Smith. This is a nonfiction memoir. I was so disappointed. It was absolutely not what I thought it was going to be. I just completely disliked the narrator. She just seems to have a lot of anger that she never really could talk about, maybe, and she put it all into this book. And I think she should have just written this for herself, because it almost seemed like she just needed to get her anger out, and then she published it. I was just constantly annoyed. And I do regret reading this, absolutely. One Dark Window, I liked it, but I didn't love it. There were a few things in the beginning specifically that annoyed me a little bit. One of the main things, like, I didn't really like our main character, because she accuses our male main character quite early on in the book of keeping secrets from her, when she keeps a massive secret from him, and never ever is it pointed out that that is so hypocritical. And I thought that was just super annoying and weird, and I just didn't really like her because of that, because she very quickly tells him, like, oh, why didn't you tell me this? Why did you keep this from me? And I was like, well, girl, you're keeping something equally as big, maybe even bigger, from him. And also, he literally hardly knows you, so he doesn't owe you any information, actually. But there were a lot of things that were good as well. So that's why mid. Giovanni's Room, I don't regret reading it, but I didn't necessarily like it very much. What can I say? None of the characters were likable. I don't think that was the point. So that's, in the sense, like a stupid critique point, because I think they're meant to be morally gray. And sometimes I like that, but in this case, I kind of didn't. And there was nothing really to like in this book. At least, there was nothing I liked in this book. I was kind of glad when it was over. Op het geniale af, which is a translation into Dutch from a German novel. And this has not been translated into English, so I cannot unfortunately give you the English title because it doesn't exist. This was mid. Yeah, what can I say? I was entertained. I really like his writing style, but other than that, nothing really special about it. Ruthless Vows was one of my favorite reads of the year. I gave it 5 stars. I was very pleasantly surprised by this one because I wasn't a big fan of Divine Rivals. I liked Divine Rivals well enough. I liked the characters, I liked the writing style, I liked the world, but there were some things in Divine Rivals that I didn't love, specifically the way that their relationship very quickly, like the opposite of slow burn. You know what I mean? I think Roman and Iris's relationship in the first book go so quickly that I felt like, whoa, 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 whoa. Can we slow down? But then at the beginning of this book, they're already together, so I didn't really have that problem. And I really enjoyed my time with it. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I loved this book. I absolutely loved this book. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. The writing style of this book is good. The characters I loved. There were some twists and turns that I really didn't see coming, and I was constantly wondering what's going to happen. There was some foreshadowing at some point, so I knew there was something that was going to happen, and I had no clue what it was going to be. I was so taken aback by what it ended up being. I absolutely love this book. I would recommend this. The Dream Harbor series. The bane of my existence. Actually, does anyone have this problem? Since Bridgerton season 2, the bane of my existence sounds like a compliment. I didn't mean it that way. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it as a compliment. I meant it as an insult. I'm so sorry. But I cannot not think of Bridgerton when I say that. The Strawberry Patch Pancake House is the one and only exception. This book I actually liked. How much did I like? Is it like mid? Yeah, I'd say it's mid. I liked the kid in this book specifically. This is a single dad trope, and the kid was so cute. I have also never read a single dad trope before, so maybe it was just the fact that I like that trope. And I don't know if the execution of it was good, but I thought so. I thought it was cute. And the thing about the Dream Harbor series as a whole, what I don't like about the series is that the male main character and the female main character in all of the books are clearly in love and don't want to be together because they think they shouldn't be. And the Strawberry Patch Pancake House, I would say, is the only exception, kind of, where they seem to actually have a good reason not to be together because they were like, well, I'm the nanny of your kid, and I don't want to, if we ever break up or something like that, it's like complicated. She also lived with him, so it was like a complex situation, and I could see why they were being very, very careful. So I wasn't bothered by the fact that they were not together. The other books, however, the Pumpkin Spice Cafe and the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, I thought were completely terrible. Completely terrible. The male main character and the female main character in both of these books absolutely just did not have a reason not to be together, especially the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. Because this Pumpkin Spice Cafe, she's kind of like at least tried to give them a reason. I just didn't think it was a good reason, but they did have a reason. In the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, they actually did not have a reason, and it's constantly characters being like in their mind being like, oh, I shouldn't fall in love with him. And I was just like, well, why not? Why not? Explain it to me because I don't get it. What's so bad about that? And they didn't have a reason. So it just felt like the only reason that the characters weren't together in chapter 3 was that the book wouldn't have been long enough to publish otherwise. That was the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, so I'm going to put that in ugh. And the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, I will say, I thought was better than the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, but still not good enough to put it any higher than this category. Also, part of this is on me. For 2 reasons, this is on me. First of all, I don't like silly things. I don't like silly. I don't like a lot of rom-coms either for this reason. I don't like when the humor is in it being absurd or it being silly or like a little bit weird. So in the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, for example, I think the opening scene is like she opens the door in like funny looking pajamas, something like that. Like I'm already kind of like, what am I reading? Because it's just so like silly. I want to explain this better, but okay, one example is I think it is Part of Your World. There's also a side character that has like a pet pig, and the pet pig is doing crazy things sometimes. I overlooked that, but I hate that sort of thing. I absolutely hate that sort of thing, and I know that's on me. Like, that's me hating that, and it's not objectively bad at all, because I think a lot of people actually love that. I don't find that funny. I don't find that funny. I just find it weird, and I find it very cringy, and I find it very annoying. And when something like that is in a book, I'm just like, eh. So that is reason number 1, that it was a little bit on me for not liking these books because they are silly, and that's not an objectively bad thing. That's just something I don't like. And then the second reason is I feel like these books are well advertised. So like I could have known that I was getting into this, what I was getting into. This is not advertised to be filled with emotional depth. And this is not advertised to be anything but a silly romance of 2 people that kind of just could be together but just refuse to be together. Like, that's how it is advertised, and I still picked it up, so that's on me. But also, like, I'm not gonna now say, like, oh, it's mid because I knew. No, like, it's still ugh to me, but also it's on me for picking it up. The Apple Pie Ice Cream Parlor is a novella that I don't know if it's already out in other countries, but it was initially only released in the Netherlands, where I live, and in Belgium, because it was written for a specific event that we host here that is called the Week of the English Book. Basically, if you buy any English books in that week, you get a little novella for free. So whoever organizes this countrywide event approached Laurie Gilmore and said, can you write a novella for this event that we're hosting? And she did that. So initially it was only available over here, but I think she is planning to publish it elsewhere as well. I thought this was the worst in the whole series. Also, it is a novella, so is it really that surprising? No, but still, the characters in this book, they kiss in the first sentence, and so it's like the opposite of slow burn, and I was really missing that build up, and I was really missing the connection. I didn't see a connection between the characters other than physical, which is also a critique point I have about the whole series. Okay, enough about the Dream Harbor series. The memoir of Lauren Graham, the character that plays Lorelai in Gilmore Girls, her memoir is called Talking as Fast as I Can, and it was supposed to be really focused also on Gilmore Girls and the filming of Gilmore Girls. I'm gonna put it in mid because I was definitely entertained, but I wanted more, specifically in the department of Gilmore Girls and things that happened behind the scenes and like how it was filming Gilmore Girls, what was like her relationship with the other actors, etc., etc. It didn't give me what I wanted, but I was entertained. So, mid. The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas, the prequel to the Throne of Glass series, I read this one first and I really, really liked it. Throne of Glass, however, I put in mid. There were some issues with the plot. There were some things that I thought were a bit weird. There were some things I didn't love, but I was entertained and I will continue the series. A Queen's Game, one of my favorite books of the year for sure. It was a reread, so I kind of already knew it was going to be 5-star, but it was a 5-star. Again, I didn't end up changing the rating. A Queen's Match. I didn't give this 5 stars. I think I gave it like a 4.5 or something like that. So I'm going to put it in definitely recommend. It was the sequel to A Queen's Game. I absolutely loved it. I loved the ending. I love where all the characters ended up. I loved how everything was tied together at the end. I just think there was a part in the beginning of the second book that felt just a little bit slow, and that's why I gave it a 4.5 instead of a 5, but still, it's a great book and I absolutely recommend. Okay, Milk and Honey is a poetry collection by Rupi Kaur, and I'm gonna say it's mid. There were some poems that I really loved and really related to. There were a lot of other poems that I really didn't like and that I even thought were a little bit cringy. So I'm gonna say overall it's mid. Remarkably Bright Creatures. I would say definitely recommend. This book was so good. I loved how everything tied together in the end. There are some chapters written from the perspective of an octopus, and you're not gonna think you need it, but you need it. You need the perspective of Marcellus the octopus. I'm telling you. So, the next one is Babel. And I would say, again, definitely recommend. I didn't quite give this 5 stars just because there were some parts that I thought were a little bit dragging and like a little bit boring. But overall, I think this book is absolutely genius. I think R.F. Kuang is a genius, and she is possibly my new favorite author. I do struggle with her books because they are very thought-provoking in a way that sometimes I don't want to think those thoughts, but they are very, very well written in the sense that they give you all these topics that you never thought about, or they give you a new perspective on a topic that you've already thought about. And Babel specifically really makes you think about certain topics like the power of language and whether language is something that you can own or not, which I thought were such interesting philosophical questions. And again, what I said about Yellowface as well is that she really gives you different perspectives on an issue instead of forcing you to pick a certain one. In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife. I give this 5 stars. I absolutely love this. This was like a dual timeline thriller, dark academia sort of murder mystery, and I loved it. I could not put this down. The Night I Met Father Christmas. I did not give this a star rating because I didn't want this to affect my average rating of the month and my average rating of the year. I didn't want it to end up in like my top books of the year because it's a bit different. It's a children's book, but I read it because I really wanted to get into the holiday spirit. But I also know that I'm not a holiday romance kind of girl, and I thought almost all holiday books that I saw were romance books and like rom-coms. So I ended up going with The Night I Met Father Christmas. It was such a cute story. I'm gonna say definitely recommend, but just know it is a children's book. Beautiful Boy, I would say, is mid. There were definitely some important lessons in here. It is a memoir, so it's a nonfiction, it's a true story written by a father about his meth addicted son. Very heavy. There were definitely a lot of things I didn't like about this book. I thought it was really dragging in some areas. It had so many descriptions of things that I just didn't need described to me, but there were parts of it that were very impactful, and so I'm gonna say mid. Time of Your Life by Jessa Hastings, I would say I definitely recommend. I almost DNF'd this book because the writing style was so annoying to me in the beginning. There's a character that has a very British? I don't know. I'm so bad with accents. I think it's a very British accent, but I actually am not sure. But he has a very strong accent. And so when you're in his perspective, it is written in that way. So it has things like, it says a lot of the word me instead of my, for example. So it says something like, oh, she sat down on me lap or something. What a random example sentence. Okay, that's something that Isolde, the girl, would totally do though. So actually, I was really bothered by that in the beginning, but I am glad I pushed through because I loved the story and it ended up bothering me less and less the further I got into the book because I think I just got used to it. The Bell Jar. This is one of those books that, like, it's a classic and it's like, oh, you're supposed to be like, oh, this is a masterpiece. It was mid. I think it kind of gave like nothing. Like, it was fine. I was entertained. I kind of went through it relatively quickly. I kept on turning the pages. It was a good writing style, but the plot was just like nothing much happened, and I would not necessarily recommend this actually. It was there. It was good, I guess, but it was not great by any means in my opinion. Then I read A Game of Thrones, which I really, really loved. I gave this 5 stars. I had never seen the TV show before, which I think really helped because I was caught off guard by the twists and turns at the end specifically. And if you've read the book and or seen the show, what happened at the end? I so did not see that coming until the very end. I was like, they're gonna fix it. They're gonna fix it. It's not actually gonna happen. And then it actually happened? What? Okay, so I just need to get that out there. The second book, however, A Clash of Kings, I would say is mid. I am going to continue the series because I've heard it gets better, and this book is kind of like a filler book. But that's what I find interesting is like it's a filler book. At least it feels to me like a filler book. Not much happens. Obviously, there things happen, but like not much happens. But it's a 1,000-page book. I'm just like, this book could have been cut down in half, and the same amount of things could have happened, and it could have been 500 pages, and it would have been fine. So that's why I would say it's mid, because I was actually struggling to get through it. If We Ever Meet Again, I would say it's also mid. I was definitely entertained, but it's not like, oh, this is my new favorite book. You know what I mean? It was good though. It was good. Okay, we are approaching the end. Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I loved this book. The character Carrie was so interesting to read about. I think she is such a complex character, and Taylor Jenkins Reid is so good at writing a character that really feels like a different person than all the other characters that you've read about. Even with me reading 62 books in this year, Carrie Soto felt like a completely different person to all the other characters that I read about, which I think that is quite impressive to do. I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This is her memoir. Very, very good, I would say. I don't really rate memoirs with a star rating, but I would say definitely recommend. It was impactful, it was emotional, it was funny, and sometimes lighthearted at the same time. So, absolutely enjoyed my time with this one. And then we're ending on a good note. Onyx Storm. This is one of my favorite series of all time. I think my all-time favorite fantasy series. I didn't love it as much as I loved Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. I think I gave it 4 stars, whereas the other 2 I gave 5 stars, but I still will definitely continue the series. I love this world. I love these characters. I love the dragons. So I'm going to say definitely recommend. And that was all of them. That was all 62 books that I read in the year 2025. So overall, yeah, quantity wise, it was a very good reading year. Quality wise, I don't think it was the best reading year, but that's fine. Also, I don't think I should compare it to last year because last year was just completely insane how many 5-star reads I found. So hopefully 2026 is going to be just a little bit better. And I also think I need to try my best to pick up more books that I think I will enjoy, because if I look at this bottom tier specifically, I think, yeah, I could have known. For most of them, I could have known that they weren't going to be my favorites. So that is one of my goals for 2026, is to pick up only books that I actually think I'm going to really like, and DNF books that I think I'm not going to like. So that was the video for today. If you watched all the way until the end, thank you so much. That is actually so cool. And I am so grateful for you. So with that, I am gonna end the video here. I will be back with another video in January, so stay tuned for that, and I really hope to see you in that video. Bye!